My topic speaks a lot to what is very important to every human. Let me use that word because I don't know if there's anyone here who has not eaten.
Enormously, instantaneously.
If you have not eaten, then for the last 2 or 3 days, then maybe you are a power. Maybe you are not a human being, but I know everyone is craving for food. So, and I really um, bring us to the point where we are in a crisis period in Nigeria. The protest issues, and yeah, and we know that Nigeria is Africa's giant. Nigeria is at the trigger of Africa. Nigeria, whatsoever that affects Nigeria, which is a typical model of an African country, is very serious and can affect other nations as well. Yeah, and then why do I talk about this protest and Africa's giant? Because we've had COVID. It affected Nigeria and other African countries. We've had health issues. We've had the Russia-Ukraine crisis. We've had the low-cost issues in the East African region. It affected. We've had wars and other challenges. It has affected Africa in one way or the other. So so these are some issues which okay, yeah, these are the issues that we are passing through at the moment. You can see the pictures displaying protests, displaying their placards on the protest. And because we are talking about food security, is food security really at the fulcrum, at the epicenter of the protests, which is ongoing, because we've had this challenge over time.
Are you an entrepreneur struggling to stand out in a crowded market? Your secret weapon is your story. Discover how to make your competition irrelevant by owning your story. Want to learn more? Check out our signature program, Own Your Story, a 5-week training to reshape your narrative. The link is what you see on your screen, academy.aclasses.org/story. Now back to the conversation.
And allow me to talk about the SDGs, not to talk about it exhaustively, but, shortly, just briefly. And you can see no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being till 17. Every of these SDGs touches on food security. And then, of course, what is all about, food security? So this is, the definition of food security. Some persons, for the benefit of other people who may not have, understood or conceptualized the meaning of food security, or in a food security situation. And of course, it exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. This was Food and Agriculture Organization in 1996. So, and of course, these are the pillars, and I will still break it down so that we will understand the availability, access, utilization, and stability. And you can see in the side of availability, we have some issues that touches on aid, that's food aid, imports, food stocks, domestic production, and then access to food, which touches on socio-economic issues or factors, political issues, equitable distribution, markets, and all that. Yeah. Now this paints a picture of food security also. A continuation of the previous slide, trying to customize the Nigerian situation in line with food security. So if food is available, how many people are accessing the food. So that's I'm just trying to now conceptualize food security as an agroeconomist that I am. With these years in the agriculture space, with the food sector, talking about foods and agricultural systems and how people are yearning and craving for food, and the cost of food is getting astronomically high, so high. Coming into Nigeria a few months ago, I was shocked. These few years that I've been away tells me that something must be done. And I keep, as a university teacher, I work with, young people a lot. And the previous speaker was talking about the youth. And I was very happy because they are the future of tomorrow. Every intervention, every help or whatsoever that we can give to them will never be a waste. So if food is available, of course, I know that food is available in Nigeria. Why am I saying that food is available? Because we have the resources, we have the variables, we have land, we have, all the factors of production, we have capital, and we have, of course, the entrepreneur, and we have labor. So why can't we utilize what we have? And even the entire 54 countries of Africa, which of course we have the sub-Saharan Africa and the Northern African region. So now, how many people, how many persons are accessing the available food? And then, of course, taking us to utilization and then stability, which, of course, gets to sufficiency and, sustainability and, of food. So how many people are getting food? Yeah, and that takes us to the next slide. So this is actually um, trying to ask us a question. Is Nigeria really food secure? Is Nigeria really food secure? So you can see from the NBS, that's Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, that was in 2019 in terms of imports. Yes, this is just 5 years ago. And you can see that, at 236.33 billion or 6.4 of total imports during can you imagine? We are importing food even at this time. So anyway, we've been saying this all over. So I will still try to present a strategy which can help us to see, and begin to work together. Even we've talked about PPP, public private people's partnership, and all of that. Anyway, you can see chickens and wheat, tomato, fish, other commodities. Of course, the agriculture space is can be broken down into crops, livestock, forestry, and fisheries. So these are all the statistics or the figures that presents itself. Yeah. So, of course, you can see that every aspect of economic transformation, growth and development of an economy, green environmental principles or policies, and production efficiency, they all contribute to food security. You can see that the reduction of food waste and, of course, reduction of biodiversity losses and value chain. Yeah, so that is it. And then this is a projection of Nigeria's food security outcomes. This was in June to September of 2020 during the lockdown. You can see the areas this is Nigeria's map, and of course these are some areas where minimal. That is minimal food insecurity. Some were stress, some crisis, and that crisis is the color which is orange color. And of course, emergency is the red, and famine is actually in the fifth one. That's the category. You can find the famine areas in the far southeast, and of course, where Boko Haram issues are. Yeah. And so this is a graphical representation of Nigeria's global food security index and rank between the year 2012 and 2019. And you can see that this ranking presents itself? Well, there's a key, which of course talks about its severity and non-severity. So the key is Global Food Security Index, and then the other one is about ranking. So you can see the ranking, and which of course indicates that it's in a crisis situation. Yeah. So the next slide is just a pictorial representation of some regions, and of course the region that has suffered this challenge of food insecurity, which is of course in the northern region. Yeah, so let's look at the primary causes of conflicts. We've had a lot of conflict issues in our beautiful country, Nigeria, food security situation in Northeast Nigeria. I actually did my youth service in the Northeast Nigeria, and I worked, I was the head of corpers then in the Christian Corpers Fellowship, and I was working very closely with the leadership of Gombe State then. And of course, I was always traveling to Jos. I was traveling to Bauchi. I was exposed to that region, and it was really really interesting. It painted a very good picture of jewel in the savannah, as they call themselves. And you can see Adamawa. Gombe is not even here. Yobe is the neighboring states, and Borno. And of course, you can see how the challenge, the severity, the percentage where in fact, I had to do a mini research before I began to develop my slides. And I was discussing with a young man who has based in the northern region. And he was telling me how food insecurity situation in the Northeast is very, very, severe. Is very severe. And I will show you something that I did with DWTV, and it was very, it was very appalling. It was more like a disgrace that I just wish that people like my very self, if I find 4 or 5 people like me, I think very proactive people, and then I think we can go to knock at the doors of leadership and push things forward. I'm very proactive. I am calm, but I know that being in the space of the agriculture sector and this food sector, and also not just this sector, the development sector. We are talking about economic development, because food security is one of the indicators of economic development. So the challenge is still at us. In our time, what are we doing? Let's get to news feed now. There are some news feed of the Nigerians' rising insecurity issues. And you can see the implications for the Nigerian economy. And this was actually developed by Ibukunolu James. And he said that Nigeria has long been regarded as one of the Africa's economic powerhouses due to its abundance. This was, this year, April. And, we have abundant resources and diversified populace. So we are the giants, really. But issues abound. I wouldn't dwell time. This is some of my representations. You may be asking, who is this young man speaking? Well, I'm not too young as such, but I'm still young, and I had been, writing and publishing in Agro Nigeria. Agro Nigeria publishes my works a lot. They keep contacting me to send them stuff. So I had proposed about the cashless policy without support system, that it will absolutely not work. I did this, that time where about 2 or 3 years ago, it was a challenge. And I also consult with the European Technology Chamber, where I advocate for Africa, that, the country of my origin. And of course, as a Pan-Africanist and as a Nigerian, and I'm very proud to say that I'm Nigerian anywhere I am. And, and also as a board member of the Food, Farming and Fisheries Alliance of the European Technology Chamber. And you see some of my quotes, everywhere. And I just chose to screenshot this on Africa's growing digital economy can actually improve resilience, and drive job creation. So the protest is born out of a lot. out of it. Some people are crying. There's no job. Things are hard, and everything centers on food. And that's why, I had to, take up this topic in a very serious dimension, because you begin to see that the other areas of economic development, which touches on standard of living or economic comfort, or maybe comfort, or trying to reduce cost of living.
Thank you for watching. Are you enjoying the video? Let us know in the comment section. My mission is to help professionals like you to own their story. What would I do for you, you might ask? Well, it helps you make your competition irrelevant. Want to learn more? Check out our signature program, Own Your Story, a 5-week training to reshape your narrative. The link is what you see on your screen, academy.aclasses.org/story. Now back to the conversation.
That becomes, very challenging. That becomes very challenging. And why? Because most of the, the money, most of the income will be going to food. So, and that is the implication of such an economy. Now, last year, and the president declared Nigeria as state of emergency, and of course on food security. And this is, an aspect of the policy brief. And he said that the food security situation in Nigeria has been critical in recent times, with 17 million persons or people estimated to be critically food insecure since 2022. So according to the October Cadre Harmonizer, a government-led and the UN reported food and nutrition analysis that is carried out twice a year. Yeah, so this was the news I appeared, which Agri-N Network in the Zambia published it. And of course, this was Germany's foremost TV station. So I featured in this 3 years ago, and they were crying, saying, how can a country that is experiencing economic growth still, get this challenge? So I did this screenshot, and malnutrition remains the biggest threat to child survival in Nigeria. And I also featured late last year at the TVC News, when I was asked to critique on the president's budget of renewed hope. I had told the president, at the president's TV, I had, laid I had made my comments very clear, and I did some sort of critique, and I asked them, what about Indonesia? I took them on a journey to Southeast Asia to begin to look at how Southeast Asia we are able to navigate, even in the issues that touches on cultural issues, because I understand that Nigeria is a very interesting country with multi-ethnic, multi-ethnic groups, and of course everything is multi. Yeah, so in Nigeria, so I began to break down the president's budget of renewed hope, and I painted a very good picture to them to follow. And of course, it has to be in line with food security. And of course, what are we doing in line with our farmers who are farming, and looking at the system, the supply chains and the value chains? Can we look at also the news feed that filtered in last year in July, just about a year ago? And this is an analysis on the real reasons why Nigeria has a food security problem. And according to the FAO, over 25 million Nigerians may face acute hunger. More than they are facing acute hunger. And can I tell you that food security, which I am talking about now, is a concept issue, is a conceptual, is a concept of its own, we have to understand that it's not just to eat food, but have we covered the 4 pillars? We have not even finished covering the first pillar, not to talk of second pillar or third pillar or the fourth pillar. Because yes, food is available. How many people are accessing food? Now, how many people? Remember the definition, nutritional health requirements. How many of us are getting the health requirements of the food we are eating? Yeah, so can we look at, this is also another, news feed from Voice of America or Voice of Africa. Experts fear Nigeria's food inflation could worsen hunger crisis. And of course, Nigeria can make significant progress towards achieving zero hunger by 2030 by prioritizing measures such as poverty reduction. Let's look at Nigeria and let's look at the 6 geopolitical zones of this country called Nigeria. Let's look at how where we came from. We experienced, we became amalgamated in 1914. We know the story. Can we go into the historical lanes and we begin to get to see how are we really coming out of poverty? What is poverty? What are the indicators of a country that is experiencing poverty? And then from poverty, we're talking about improving agricultural productivity. We used to be very good agriculturally, but what's going on? What's happening in the agriculture of our nation? What's happening with farming? What's happening with production? What's happening with processing? What's happening with distribution and what's happening with consumption? This is all about the system. Our system is broken. Our system is broken. Why is it that we are not projecting the farmers? We are not, promoting policies that will favor farmers, those who are at the fulcrum, at the place of the epicenter, at the center of production. Yeah, so of course, production is not complete except it gets to the hand of the end user. But when we are talking of production, we need to make things available. We need to look at land. We need to look at climate change issues. We need to look at technology. Anyway, we will still come to that. Now, addressing inequality issues, which has always been a challenge. Also ensuring food safety and food quality. That's another issue altogether. Addressing climate change. Yeah. So let's look at energy access, which of course influences dietary choices and cooking practices. You can see the connection between energy access, and food and nutritional security. Yeah. Let's look at some of the solutions, because as I am painting these pictures here, we also need to look at how to tackle some of these challenges, because that is where I should be able to volunteer. Can I volunteer that to tackle the issues of hunger crisis, food insecurity issues? We need to look at the crops we are doing well in. And of course, in Africa, cassava, maize, and rice are the most popular crops that are being grown in Africa. You may feel that yam is popular. Yam is just popular for you and for us in Nigeria, but what of in the other African countries? That tells us that yam is part of the neglected crops of Africa. Now, do you know that Nigeria is very blessed? We are positioned around the equator. I was in a meeting yesterday with some people from the Nairobi Council, Nairobi County Council in Kenya, and we were talking about food security. Yeah, and I had also talked about poverty reduction, reducing poverty, which of course we are talking about productivity, producing enough crops, producing livestock. Let's look at our livestock. Yes, we have ruminant animals like goats, cattle, and we have even sheep. We have monogastric animals like all sorts of livestock. We have poultry. We need to locate and have a very good work with Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. When I consulted for the United Nations around Ubiaja, where Uromi is, of course, Obehi knows about that. And it was a serious matter, looking at the structure of that facility and the plan of Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Agriculture and, of course, Federal Department of Agriculture and federal government at that time in 1981, where they had to, come up with 4 food crop production technology transfer stations, of course, in Dan Hassan in Kano State, the other one in Gesha in Yobe State, these 4 regions, and the other one at Ugwoba in Enugu State, And of course, the one at Ubiaja, which is in the south Nigeria, is actually completed it as the 4. And the plan was that it would metamorphose to Federal College of Agriculture, where they will begin to train young people, where they will begin to train people who are interested in agriculture on technological solutions. Now, technology can be sophisticated. It can also be indigenous, which, of course, we need to identify with our farmers, get to know what they are doing, trying to help them in tractorization. How many farmers are having tractors? When I did my interview, this guy was crying. He was saying that the farmers can, that the government is making things hard for them because instead of helping them with tractors, people are using it for business. Business, that is, they collect money from them. And these are people who are struggling. And even in the food supply chain, their reward is quite slim because it's the middlemen that, challenges them. So they are their rivals. So they compete with them. And that's why we are talking about blockchain technology, which tries to ensure for traceability for them. So we are in serious business on how to begin to do soft landing for the fourth industrial revolution, promises in line with technology. I'm still coming to that. Now, of course, you can see that some of these areas in tackling some of this situation, building irrigation schemes, structures, sufficient water usage, and not just depending on rain-fed agriculture. Not just when rain falls, then we will eat. Is there any plan that is being made when rain does not fall? So when rain does not fall, are we going to go hungry? Are we not meant to be eating food? Even the scriptures tells us that that food is meant for meant for the belly, and the belly for food. So, and that is how we were created. And of course, agronomic practices, which must be adhered to the friendly agronomic practices. And this will, begin to foster, the right policies and bringing them. Now, can I present the strategy I developed recently? And I had been presenting it, and it's already registered and captured in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Library of Congress has they gave me the copyrights back in so to run away from piracy with the brain reengineering concept and reimagination, which is a strategy for entrepreneurship development and youth engagement in agriculture. Young people are very important in food and agricultural systems transformation. The previous speaker had talked about the youths, and the youths, they have a wrong perception about agriculture. These are the 4 pillars of the brain reengineering. Beginning to re-engineer the minds of people. We are talking about protests. And I heard him, even the first speaker was talking about mindset change. This is the solution to Nigeria's problem. I had, with my long years in the agriculture space, I was raised at the University of Nigeria, in Nsukka, where my parents, worked. I was privileged to attend very, good university, and, a good secondary school and all of that. I knew Chinua Achebe's house, but I didn't know him because I was quite young, but, he lived close to our house then. I knew the Okonjos, I knew, Chimamanda, of course, was my senior in school. And can I tell you that it was in that environment that I began to read about agriculture. I went in for agriculture with my whole heart. And I know, that in our secondary school then, I was the only one who went out for agriculture. So I'm not a product of afterthoughts. I am an original branch. I'm an original stock from those who knew about agriculture. And my mother exposed me to farming early. So I became an early farmer. So I could relate with the challenges of our farmers, the challenges of the African farmer. And that's why you see me advocating for the rights of farmers. And I have, I have, sat in the same, table, and I am sitting even in the same tables with the Pakistani ambassadors. And, not just to Rwanda, even Pakistani ambassador to Nigeria, telling them how we can talk about Asia, which of course relates to, quite similar to Nigeria's agriculture as well, even in India, those, countries of the global south and other African countries. Yes. Can I continue to talk about the perception problem that young people have about agriculture that is for poor people? And of course, that takes us to ideation. So this strategy tries to replace, to educate, to educate them. So this is a re-educational strategy, re-educating young people, re-educating even the men and the women to tell them, where agriculture is right now, brainstorming, understanding the business models for entrepreneurship opportunities, and of course, technology integration, which of course we've talked about blockchain. What about drones, agricultural drones? What about Internet of Things? Well, what about artificial intelligence, which is changing the face of agriculture? And I also advocate that we must go slow, in a soft landing dimension for our rural farmers. Most of the agriculture happens in the rural areas. So how are we unlocking rural infrastructure in the rural places? And Nigeria, of course, is rural. We need to understand that we must have to inject factories, industries. We need to get to the doors of the president so that he will, we are talking about Indian hemp now. I'm really discussing with persons. It has not been legalized in Nigeria, but it has been legalized in Ghana. But that crop alone has a lot of potentials to drive economic growth and development. We've had research. I am just working a lot with researchers because I am also a researcher, and I can tell you that what I am saying stands very tall. Sustainability and circular economy. This is the aspect that the fourth pillar of the brain reengineering helps to mitigate food waste and food losses. So when we mitigate food waste and food losses, there will be food security. Now, the previous speaker was talking about equity and policy issues, even the second speaker as well. I overheard them and I say, okay, this is actually, very holistic because the brain reengineering strategy promises, an opportunity for actualizing the SDG, the 17 SDGs, and not just for food production. Yeah, now going to the next slide as I begin to conclude my presentation. The brain reengineering concept, which of course, talks about young people, professionals for developing agriculture further. And young professionals, they have fresh ideas. They love a scientific and technologically driven, food systems. They love to see technology. They love to handle smart, practice smart farming. They love to practice precision agriculture. And that can unlock food chain security. Yeah. And this is a screenshot of the Library of Congress certificate of registration of this strategy. And I am also presenting it to you, who is listening to me today, that a strategy that can help Nigeria, that can help the global south, and not just for Africa, to navigate its challenges in the SDGs. And of course, I'm working a lot with institutions. I wouldn't want to say much about it, but you'll be surprised, that this strategy is going very fast and very far. Yeah, so, and of course, I had to publish something on the brain reengineering strategy, which rebrands agriculture and youth engagement in promoting food production. So I did this, at the European Modern Studies Journal. And of course, works are being published with the brain reengineering. And I presented this strategy at the Rachel University College, and the Anglo-Ruskin University has also bought the Rachel University College, and they have published my work. So the mayor of Birmingham was recognizing me last year. And I have done some of these works. I have authored some of this work. It's from my PhD. I finished my PhD 10 years ago at the University of Nigeria before I proceeded to South Africa for my postdoc. And I worked with the Agricultural Research Council and the University of Fort Hare. And, and of course, we are working a lot with the National Research Foundation, and of course, Water Research Commission, and also with the Norfolk in Netherlands on funding solutions for our people, our young people. And of course, I appeared. Okay, this was the summit that took us to the Nigerian house in London, in London and in Birmingham as well. So this is also a summit which is about to take place, and it's all centered on food security. And this will be happening in Germany in September. So these approaches that we are looking at on how to correct the challenges. We need to look at some of the issues on data. Some farmers are not registered, and it pains my heart that farmers are not registered. So how are we going to reach them when we have an intervention, when we have some subsidies to reach out to them? So, and some of the farmers of Africa, most of them are smallholder based, they are small scale farmers, and we need to encourage them. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. That was really highly valuable. Of course, I know what you can do. I already know what I was going to expect. You are the best in town. So thank you so much for that presentation, looking at the relevance of food security in Nigeria. Because again, you look at the situation that we have in Nigeria. Of course, I'm trying to see the potential now. A demography that is dominated by young people. Of course, the speaker before you already highlighted that of course we have more people that are young in Nigeria than old people. We should speak of the potential that we have in a country of over 230 million people. We are a significant force in the world. I just hope that those who are leading us pay attention to that and leverage that for the good of not only Nigeria, also the whole of Africa. You see, repeatedly, Professor Lumumba, famous motivational speaker from Kenya, continued to say that if Nigeria can make it, then the whole of Africa can make it. And this might sound to people that maybe he's overpraising Nigeria, but that is true because we represent a significant force in the world. We don't need to underestimate ourselves. So it means that the Nigerian government need to get it right, not only for Nigeria, but for the whole of Africa and the entire African diaspora community, which are actually hundreds of millions of people. A lot of people are relying on the success of Nigeria. This is very important. We need to point it out.
Enormous, instantaneous.